Hello, and welcome to another episode of Backlog Brainrot. Today I am joined by my usual co-hosts, Straw Hat,
Konnichiwa, Minasan.
and the fastest visual novel reader on Earth, Connor.
It's not fast in terms of speed, it's fast in terms of just pure concentration.
Oh, it's a 20-hour game? Okay, I'll be done in 1 day and a
In
half.
20 hours.
Straight. So today we are going to be ranking our top 10 visual novels. This is a genre that all three of us really enjoy. A few notes on the list before we start. We each made our own top 10 with our number one choice being worth 10 points down to our 10th choice being worth 1 point. So then I took those three lists and combined them out to make our joint top 10. But in this case, there was a tie. So it's technically a top 11 list. I'm sorry that the title is a lie.
How dare you?
It's going to happen a lot, so be prepared to be offended every single time, I'm sure.
Yes, I know. It's a crime what we're doing to you.
I will warn you, we are not becoming nostalgia critic for any of you who get that reference.
I don't.
I think maybe Gremlin does.
So we are going to first start off with the four games that just missed the cut. These were the four games that had 5 or 4 points on the list, so they just barely missed out on being that 11th spot. We will start with the game Connor put 6th on his list, and that is Muv Love Alternative.
Yeah, that was I mean, I had to have that one on my list because it's just so big and it's so grand, and there's not a lot of stories like it in the sci-fi space that I've even read. A lot of cool concepts in it, but it could have been higher, but there's little personal nitpicks about it for me.
I haven't read it yet, so it did not make my list, obviously.
I did read it. I played, Muv Love and then Muv Love Alternative maybe a few months later, and I also really enjoyed it. I would have put it on an honorable mention list, but my only problem with the game, I just feel like it was, a little overly long in the tooth, but I think it had a lot of really interesting ideas.
Also, I believe I had it on 7th.
Yep, I was about to record that.
Too late. I've now pointed it out, and we must keep the joke.
Yeah, we're leaving it in.
It's those reverse numbers, and it's really throwing me off.
Right?
It got 4 points, but it was your 7th game, not your 4th, not your 6th, your 7th.
You should think about how I feel entering everyone's picks for the Persona 5 and now the Trails polls on the Discord.
Straw Hat, do you have any interest in playing that series or not?
I mean, I still need to play the first one yet. I think I have both of them actually. So I don't remember. It must be the month because I know we did have them on our list last year,
did.
but I must have got busy playing other things, but so I never got to either one. But
that was definitely a Connor solo period for the club at that point in the year.
Yeah, because it took me like a month and a half to get through the first one, which had 2 games in it. And then I took like a multiple month long break, and then it took me like 2.5 months to play Alternative because the characters were very interesting, I thought, and the story was also very interesting, but it had such a slow pace that I had trouble playing it for really long extended periods. Our next just missed the cut game was Straw Hat's 10th choice and my 8th choice, and that is the original AI The Somnium Files. If you want to take it away, Straw.
ooh, yeah, I wondered if this would make the cut. It was kind of a surprise when this game came out because I didn't expect to like it as much as I did. I really like the gameplay. Like you pretty much go through trying to solve the different people's psyches, like you're in their minds trying to figure out what's happening, and then you like get time penalties for it, and it's just a great game. It's not too long. I think it's like 20 or so hours, and I love Date. He's a great main character.
Yeah, I also really enjoyed this one. I love Date, and I also liked a lot of the supporting cast. And at first, I didn't really know how to feel about it. I feel like a lot of these sorts of games, they kind of start slow and they start mysterious. I'm not really sure what to make of them. But once it kind of got going and I figured out the mechanics of the crime scene investigation, I really got super into this one.
This was the first of the Uchikoshi written visual novels I had played through. But the funny part about it is the more I go backwards through his works, the more I falls in my rankings. Still great, but I actually like his older stuff more.
Yeah, I want to check those out eventually. Some of the other ones that you played this year. What were they called again?
The two I got to in last month were Ever 17 and Remember 11.
Yeah, it's funny because I played Zero Escape and then I didn't even know that Somnium Files was the same person until, after I already had started it.
Oh, yeah, see, I knew going in. That's one of the reasons I was like, oh yeah, I gotta try this.
You definitely still get a sense of his style through all of them.
So then next up would be Connor's sixth game, which is The House in Fata Morgana.
I was wondering how many of these would be combos, but and I also was fully expecting a lot of mine to be mine to be the only one picking mine.
Yeah, if you look at the list, you'll kind of find that you had the most outlier picks, but I also had quite a few outlier picks, but they were just mostly even lower on my list than these ones. So Straw actually had the list that combined the most between the three of us.
Yeah, but as far as Fata Morgana goes, I was not expecting to like that one as much as I did. I am not a huge fan of the macabre, and I am generally not a fan, or didn't know I was a fan of those kind of European. I don't know exactly what you would call a style, like I don't know, romancy kind of
Like a
macabre
dark,
romance, I guess.
like a dark romance of some kind.
Yeah, it's more like I'm thinking of like that sort of Victorian kind of
Gothic.
yeah, gothic. Okay, that's
Mhm.
the word I was looking for. Yeah, so bit of a surprise there. Really liked it.
I did read this one too. I did like it. I think my biggest thing was like like I like some chapters or stories more than other ones, and then they did kind of start to overlap a little bit, which was the point, but it did just miss my list. It probably would have made it at, I don't know how far I had it ranked up on it, but I did enjoy it, just not as much as obviously the ones I did have on the list.
Yeah, the music was a big factor for me, and pretty much like set the tone through the whole thing and kept me going.
How is it structured exactly? This is a game that's been on my list mostly because I like the way that it looks. Like I like the gothic style because I'm a big horror guy, so that's kind of mostly the draw for me, but I don't actually really know almost anything about it.
It's kind of structured as a set of short stories that then start to become more and more entangled as they're told.
Gotcha. So can you play them in any order or is it linear?
It's pretty linear.
Yeah.
Gotcha. And then our final game that just missed the cut also had 5 points, and that is Valhalla, which Connor had at 10th and I had at 7th.
Oh, yeah, see, I didn't put that. That one just missed my list. That would have been my number 11 on the list. So
I really love this game. We've talked about it in a different episode already, but I just found the gameplay, which is funny to say about a visual novel style game, but the gameplay was just so soothing to me, making the drinks and getting to know all the different weird cast of characters that come into the bar.
Yeah, my only note for it is chill incarnate with one of the best OSTs in gaming.
It is so satisfying.
Yeah.
Have either of you played Coffee Talk? It's a very similar style game.
Not yet.
me neither. I want to though.
Yeah, I like Valhalla better than Coffee Talk, but I think it also has a very similar chill vibe. You just get to talk to different characters and make them drinks and just pretty much just chill.
There is a sequel to Valhalla coming out, right? I think it must have got delayed because I thought it was coming. Was it last year? But then I never heard
Yeah.
anything about it.
It got put on indefinite hiatus. What would they
Uh-oh.
call it? I can't remember the name of it at the
I
moment.
believe it's called Silk Song Itis.
Is that game ever coming out or what?
I don't know at this point.
All right, so that wraps up our just missed the cut section. So Valhalla and House and Fata Morgana had 5 points, and AI Somnium Files 1, and Movlove Alternative each had 4 points. So that brings us to our tied for 10th spot. Start with Straw Hats. We'll start with Straw Hat's 5th choice, which is AI The Somnium Files 2, which I know Connor's also played.
So I'm the only one who put that on the list then? It's just because I had it so high?
Yep, you had it high up, so it
All
just
right.
made it to the tied for 10th spot.
Yeah, so the biggest thing for this one is I never thought they were going to top the first game, was the biggest. So going in, I was like, I'm probably going to like this, but it's not going to be as high as the first one because Date's not the main character anymore, and I just didn't think they'd be able to pull a twist off as good as they did in the first game, but I was wrong. They made the game even longer, actually, and they just made everything better. And just like the new characters they added were great, kind of like Parrot mentioned already from the first one. The side characters really shine, and they had 2 main characters this time, and they were both pretty good. And I also heard that they are making the third one might be coming. They just actually talked about, I think was it yesterday I saw news about they are making possibly a third one. So I'm excited to play more, and yes, this is definitely becoming one of my favorite visual novel series.
I had a kind of similar thinking to this one I did for VLR, Virtue's Last Reward, after playing 999, where both 999 and I, the Somnium Files 1, I kind of like the character writing more and the scenario. But while I wasn't a huge fan of like the twists and sci-fi elements of VLR, the twist in Rana Initiative was just, and the sci-fi stuff was just so compelling to me that they carried the story on their own right for me.
And Parrot, you haven't played this yet, right?
Nope, it's on that part of the backlog where it's always towards the top, and then I just things just go ahead of it, and it's just continually sitting there, and like my I'll get to that soon pile, but soon just hasn't quite come yet.
Yeah, like the hey, January is going to be a cleanup month. Oh, Parrot played Sonic games all
Yeah,
January.
I'm having the struggle lately where I'm really not able to focus on a game that's just all story. I'm just really been in the mood to just play a game and have something fun to play. So unfortunately, that isn't quite this sort of game.
You got that action brain rot.
Yep, pretty much. That's where I'm at right now. Eventually it'll go fully in the other direction and I'll be trying to read as fast as Connor.
Good luck.
But yeah, I really am really interested to see how the sequel compares to the first one and how having a totally different main character changes how it all interacts with each other.
Way more interesting than I expected it to be, that's for sure.
Yep.
I'm definitely glad that it exists because I don't know, I didn't know how popular the first one was, so I didn't really ever assume we'd get another one.
Yeah, same.
Yeah. Took me 3 years to get to the first one.
Yeah, when did the first one come out? Do you know?
2019, I think.
Yeah, it was around then. I got it on the Humble Bundle, I think, shortly after.
Yeah, so I didn't get to that one until 2021, I believe. So I was a couple years behind. I remember I played the first one on the Switch and it just ran so terribly.
That's actually what I have them both on still.
Though I think that if I had bought the second one on the Switch, I might have played it already. For some reason, that sort of game I just definitely prefer playing handheld, so I probably
Yep.
made a little bit of a mistake getting it on PlayStation.
Yeah. I definitely liked playing it on the PlayStation personally. But PC was a little awkward to play a bunch of visual novels on, I'm now finding.
That's where the Steam Deck comes in.
Yeah, maybe when I have hopefully when I have an income again.
Yeah, maybe in a few decades I'll get one. Finally make Addy happy when he no longer cares.
Just don't tell him when you get one.
Yeah.
I
That'd
won't.
be funnier.
Maybe I already have one. All right, so our second 10th place game is a game that was also only on one list, and that is Robotics Notes, which I had at 5th, just like Straw Hat had his game at 5th. So this is a game in the science adventure series, which is easily my favorite visual novel franchise. So it is in the same reality as Steins Gate and Chaos Head and Chaos Child. And there are connections between them all, but they're mostly tenuous. But I would actually say Robotics Notes probably has the most connections to the other games compared to all the other games in the series. It has a little bit more than just Easter eggs, I'll say.
It's funny for me to hear, having just finished Chaos Head, and the only other ones I've played are Steins Gate and Steins Gate Zero. Steins
Yeah.
Gate Zero kind of has an out as far as being referenced in later titles, but I'm very curious to see how Robotics Notes actually ties in on this series.
Yeah, so I can say that there is a character from Steins Gate that plays a very large recurring role in the game, and they're in the promotional materials. It's not much of a spoiler, but I won't say it.
That's
Yeah,
funny because I haven't seen it.
I think you already told me who it was, but I won't spoil it here.
Yeah, so it takes place, like multiple years after Steins Gate, but it's a totally unique story with its own cast of characters minus the one recurring one from Steins Gate. You have a main character, Kaito, who's addicted to video games. He's so lazy. He won't do anything or help anybody unless they can beat him in a video game, which he's like a master at. So he just uses that to his advantage to never have to do work. And then they have one of my favorite characters in any visual novel, Akiho, who is this very sweet but very determined, energetic girl whose whole goal in this game is to motivate Kaito and recruit other kids to join her robotics club, because a lot of the game is really slice of life, and they're all about all these kids in the robotics club trying to gain funds and build a robot. And we're not talking like a little robot, we're talking like a real full size mech, basically.
Nice. I
Yeah,
actually was in a robotics, basically a robotics club for a little while in high school.
nice.
Did you build a robot big enough you could ride in?
No, sadly not. But I
Yeah.
did get help drill holes through some aluminum framing, and I didn't really know how to program at the time, but one of the guys there helped me learn.
Nice.
So you have some real world experience with this. You probably will like the game a lot too whenever you get to it.
Yeah, it should actually be a lot of fun for me.
Yeah, I'm definitely interested. I have it on my list. I just need to play the other Chaos games first. I bought that Switch double pack collector's edition for it when it came out with its notes, and what was the other? There's another one with it too.
Notes Dash.
That's
Not
right.
not very good. Definitely the worst game. It's kind of just
Ooh.
like a rom-commy version of Robotics Notes. It's not great, but Daru's in it a lot from Steins Gate, so that's sort of some sort of appeal to it.
That adds a lot to it.
But yeah, I definitely recommend this game. It's easily my second favorite in the science adventure series for
Yeah, I have
sure.
a feeling we're gonna hear maybe about the other one a little
Yeah,
later.
I think we might.
Just a small possibility.
All right, so that takes us out of our 10th place tie and brings us to number 9, which is a game that was only on Straw's list. He had it at 4th, and that is 13 Sentinels.
Ooh.
But both Connor and I have played this one, I believe.
I was actually really tempted to put it on my list, but I was sitting there going, this isn't quite visual novel-y enough that I'm going to put it on my top 10. There's a little too much strategy gaming going on here.
Yeah, I gave it the nod because I figured it's still. I think it's more. I mean, yeah, I mean it has a lot of visual novel stuff in it, and it has the real time gameplay as well. But yeah, I absolutely love this game. I know Parrot did not like this game that much, but I just, of course, the art style is what originally drew me to it because Vanillaware did it, and they just do gorgeous visuals all the time.
They
So
really did on that one.
oh yeah. So, and then it's like the story you would think would make no sense because you can pretty much play certain parts of it in any order you want because there's 13 different characters, but the way they do it works really well. And I actually got the platinum trophy of this, and I don't even really play that many games on PlayStation, so that should show you how much I really liked it. But People need to definitely support this game because I know it did come to Switch. I thought about buying it again. I was gonna wait until it came to Steam, but I don't know if it will. But yes, Addie and Ed and I actually did an episode on Passive Pixels about 13 Sentinels. So if you're interested, you should go check that out because we all really liked it. And it's weeb enough that it made the show somehow of Passive Pixels, which is famous for its weeb trials, but not really positive weeb talk.
Yeah, it's. I was really surprised how much I enjoyed the combat aspect of it as well. I have typically come to expect that when certain story focused games try to integrate a lot of combat on the side, it feels very on the side.
Yeah.
So the nice, quick, smooth system that they created there, very much appreciated.
And typically, I do not like real time strategy. I like turn based strategy a lot, but this was really fun. I enjoyed the battles, which surprised me.
Yeah, going into it, the battles is what I most thought I wouldn't enjoy, but I actually, yeah, I did not mind them at all. I think I got the platinum also because I'm pretty sure like the hardest thing you had to do was you had to beat all the combat situations on hard or
Oh,
something like
right.
that.
Yep.
But yeah, this game, I wouldn't say I didn't like it, but I also wouldn't say I really liked it all that much. I found some of the characters to be very interesting. I liked the girl with the ponytail, the black haired ponytail. She's kind of like the
Oh yeah,
more like punky looking
Oh,
girl,
yeah.
and then the gym girl with the robot or whatever.
Yep.
And then there was a few other ones I found interesting, but some of the characters I just didn't personally ever get very invested in. And I think that if it's one of those games that if you really put in a lot of effort to it, I feel like the plot is probably really like amazing, the way it all connects. But that sort of storytelling to me isn't a huge draw. I end up just getting a little confused and more just annoyed by all of it instead of really enjoying trying to piece it together.
yeah. Whereas I was having so much fun trying to piece all those threads in my mind and
Yeah, this
wrangle it all.
seems like the perfect game for you from how I know you like your stories.
Well, and one thing they love to do in that game is make you think that you have it figured out, and then they're like, actually, you don't have it figured out because they'll lead you down paths thinking, oh, yeah, this is going to be an obvious sci fi trope. But then they're like, actually, it's not exactly that.
And that's the key. It's not exactly that. They always twisted it in a way where I didn't feel cheated. That was the fun part.
Yeah, I actually kind of liked where it went at certain times, but ultimately it was just not super memorable to me. Like, and now as time has gone on, I definitely could not name you the 13 characters. I probably couldn't even name you, maybe half of them.
I couldn't name a single one at this moment in
Well,
time.
okay,
Not,
I should say
not
I couldn't describe them to you because there's no way I could name them. I probably couldn't even name you a person I met, a week ago. So names are not a strong suit for me.
Take a while, draw. One of them's called Makoto.
I think that is one of them. Natsune is the one that you guys all like with the robot.
Do you remember the name of like the ponytail girl with the red shirt? I'm pretty sure she was my favorite one.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about, but I don't remember her name,
The red,
unfortunately.
like handkerchief tie or something.
Yeah.
Yakuza girl, not Yakuza. There's another. Actually, she was kind of Yakuza.
Yeah, she had like the old school outfit.
It was the other guy who was like the greaser punk.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
like
Ogato or something, I think his name was.
with that exact what's that hairstyle called?
Yeah, Pompadour.
So now we'll go to our 8th game, which I was a little surprised neither of you had, but the franchise is very well represented on this list, and that is Danganronpa 1.
Mm-hmm.
Oh boy,
which I had as my 3rd game.
Whoa!
And neither of you had it on your lists.
I can take a guess now that we're going to be seeing at least 2 other games in this series on the list now.
And that is the main reason why it didn't make my list. So, because
same.
Yeah, well, I had to shout it out because this is my favorite of the trio. I know that's a pretty controversial opinion, but I think it very well might just be that I played this one first and I, went in hearing about the series, but I didn't have like super high expectations for it. And I honestly, a lot of the time I just hear something is good and I know it's like up my alley, so I just kind of go in blind. So I really didn't even know much about how the game functioned with the class trials and the murder mystery element to it. All I really knew was that there was a bear. So I think I was just very surprised when I got into it. I was really, really hooked very fast. I remember I played this during COVID, like right towards the beginning of the quarantine. So I just flew through the first one and then the second one, back to back, basically.
That was more or less how I was entered the series. Where I don't remember what I saw on Steam that made me pick it up, but I saw it on Steam on sale and had no idea what I was getting into and was highly surprised.
So for me, I definitely like I do love the first Danganronpa. It was hard for me not to put it on the list, and for a while I did think I liked it more than 2 until I replayed both of them recently, and then I'm like, you know what? I like 2 a lot more than I thought, and which we'll probably talk about later. But the reason I discovered Danganronpa, I got it originally on Vita. Day 1, I was ready for it because I had actually watched the anime, just like the first episode first. I'm like, oh, I really like this premise, but I'm like, I'm not going to keep watching it because it's going to spoil everything. So I stopped after that and pre-ordered it on Vita and got it day 1.
So you were very early on it.
I
Yep.
thought the anime was after the English release, but they probably went Japanese release, anime English release, didn't it?
Yeah, it must have been because they must have put it on Crunchyroll or Funimation first, and the anime is not very good, to tell you the truth either. But because obviously, usually the visual novel adaptations just they have to rush through everything, so it just doesn't work. But yeah, I must have heard about it somewhere else too. But anyway, but yeah, I had got it right away and got all of them pretty much right away as soon as they released.
And you'd lose out of the gameplay aspects too much if you just watch the anime, and that's a massive component of this, unlike a lot of the visual novels on
Mm-hmm.
here.
Yeah, the class trials I think are just very genuinely fun.
The best part of the novels, for sure.
And I also am a sucker for the, oh, you have free time, let's go hang out with people.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is always a little fun.
I just like to, get to know the people, then slowly determine who my favorites are, then just hang out with them. And the way I play those sorts of things is I don't ever end up looking up what happens in the other people's events. I'm just like, oh, this is my game, and I really like these people, so that's who I hung out with. So that's
Same.
in my mind canon. That's who matters.
Did you
Asahina,
shout out?
Hifumi, of
Ugh.
course, Hifumi. I hung out with him every chance I could.
I was gonna shout out Hina, of course, because she's best girl in Danganronpa. I still say, even though we didn't do an official backlog brainrot poll yet. But did you guys ever play the school mode? Because it is really fun to do, actually.
I played like 15, 20 minutes of it and then realized, okay, this is cool. I'll come back to it later.
What is it exactly?
You basically have to manage everybody, all the characters. Like they have to clean the school, work on projects. You have to. It's like a resource management type game. Like you have to try to finish all these projects, and then at the end you'll graduate and get to see like different character endings and stuff like that.
That kind of does sound pretty fun. I might try it. I bought it on Vita also. That's where I have it, so I could always
Mhm.
re-download it.
Yeah, I have all of them on Vita and Steam except Danganronpa V3. I don't know if did that come to Vita. I got that one on Steam right
Yeah, it
away,
did.
but
It did come to Vita, I believe, but I played that one on PS4. I also just really liked the cast in the first one. Again, it very well could just be that that's what I played first. So, but there really aren't too many of them that I have a disinterest in, and there's a lot of standouts in there.
Yeah. I kind of see the first and second game as more or less the same game in a general sense. So I was just like, I like the second one more. So
see, and I think the first game has the strongest female or classmates. I feel like they're the best overall. Where I feel like the second one has the best male, and then the third game just has the worst cast overall. I feel like even though we'll talk about later where it ranks, but
Yeah, I think I would agree with that. But you're also once again sleeping on Hifumi and his star power.
Mm.
He's
So
a comedy magnet.
yeah,
He's
the
something.
game
He's
wouldn't be the same
something.
without him.
That's definitely true. I'll give you that.
So that brings us to number 7, which is the biggest swing and just shows how different the lists are. And that is Connor's number 1 game is down all the way at 7 because he was alone in putting it on the list.
Oh
And
no.
that is Clannad.
Oh
Yep,
yeah.
Clan Ad. I knew this one was going to be another low ranker if it made it at all. And frankly, I just put it at number 1 on the last top 10 I was on. So I'm probably not going to talk too much about it other than to say, y'all should play Clan Ad.
It's on my list. I did actually play partially a long time ago, but I
Play,
never finished it. But I watched the anime, so I know of its greatness, and I do have it on my backlog. So
that is all. That's all I have to say. Play through all of it. Play through After Story. If you haven't watched the anime, highly recommended.
bring some tissues.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't really know much about it but you love it so much, so I'm going to eventually try it. I threw it on a Switch, my Nintendo Switch like eShop wish list, and I look in there once in a while. And I was like, oh, this is never on sale, and I looked it up, and the Switch port came out in like 2020 or something, and it has never once gone on sale. So I might just have to play on the computer,
I
but you
think,
know how I feel about that.
yeah, I think I got it in the Humble Bundle actually.
I know sometimes that was a nice click on the audio. I know sometimes that those Switch games go on sale and they don't get caught on the trackers. So
So
if
you're
I see
saying,
it, I'll keep my eyes
yeah,
out.
I'm willing to try it, but yeah, I don't necessarily want to pay $45 for a digital eShop game.
We'll have to
Yeah.
we'll have to definitely do a topic on it once Parrot and I finish it, since you like it so much.
Yeah.
So sadly for Connor, his number 1 game is off the boards. A little too early for his liking, I'm sure. But our number 6 game is the first game on our top 10/11 that 2 people put, and that is Virtue's Last Reward, which Straw had at 9 and I had as my second overall game. This for me was actually the very first visual novel I ever played. I I don't want to say that I didn't know this genre existed, but it was definitely in the background. I never thought about them, never thought to play them. But then I had a Vita and I was in college and this game got added to PlayStation Plus and at the time, I didn't really have a lot of, disposable income. So anything that came to PlayStation Plus, I pretty much just tried or played. So I booted it up and I was a little confused at first. I was like escaping from a room puzzles and like, okay, this is kind of weird. I'm not really sure how I feel about this. But then I just kept playing and I became very, very enamored by the story and all the really wild different characters.
For me, so my friends Delufus and Justin Destruction from Weebs of the Corn really love this series, and they were after me so long to play this. So I bought 999 on DS originally, and then of course, as soon as I bought it and started it, they announced the Nonary Games package coming to all modern consoles. So I'm like, well, I guess I'll stop and just get that.
As it happens.
Yep.
Yep.
So yeah, I played all 3 of them pretty much the same year. I don't remember what year that came out. It was either 2016 or 17 maybe. Maybe it wasn't that early, I don't know. But I played them all in the same year and this was my favorite one. I think the characters are my favorite in this one because I like Clover is from the first game too, which I always loved Clover. Luna's great, Dio's great.
Dio was great.
Yes, Quark I
Yeah.
like too. I pretty much liked everybody, I think, in this game, where that wasn't the case in all of them. But it's funny because I think the story is phenomenal, the story and the characters, but I just don't really like escape room puzzles, which is why it's not as high on my list, because otherwise it would be, because I just really like, especially this game of the whole trilogy. Unfortunately, the third game is my least favorite and probably the
Yep.
weakest.
Same. Yeah, like I said, this was the first visual novel I played, so I didn't even at the time. I don't think I even knew it was a sequel to anything. And the plot does, stand up totally on its own. There are definitely connections between that and the first game, 999, but I don't remember having any issues following the game at all.
It's funny that I kind of had like such a differing reaction to this one from what
Mm-hmm.
sounds as the norm. Where, like in 13 Sentinels, I really enjoyed all the little twists and all these just wild, like 13 Sentinels always felt like it could go anywhere as far as a sci-fi story goes. And VLR does the same thing. It could go anywhere. It felt like the execution in VLR was too chaotic for me, or it was too soon after I had played 13 Sentinels. So it just kind of made me frustrated the whole time. And I wasn't as attached to the characters in that one, even as much as I was in 999, which I really liked.
Yeah, I just think I really, really liked the characters, and also the nostalgia of it being my very first one. I think also probably makes me like this game more than maybe it deserves. But I think a lot of people do like this one, right?
Yeah, they do.
I will say that it is definitely slow because you have to play a lot of the same stuff multiple times, and you can fast forward. But I remember like going through the doors just like
The
takes
bloody
forever.
damn hallways.
It
If
takes
there's
so long.
one thing that I think ruined the experience for me, it was those hallways. And not from an objective standpoint, but because I have ADD monkey brain when I'm playing games.
Yeah, I could definitely see it. It's very, very, very slow. But yeah, shout out to Dio. Love that character very much.
Awesome. Awesome antagonist slash kind of questionable.
If you name your character Dio, you know they're gonna be good. Ask JoJo fans.
I gotta finish that series.
Since we're here, the other two games, neither of them made the list. So, is there anything else you want to say about those? 999, I also really enjoyed. I
Mm-hmm.
played that when it came to the Nonary Games collection, which I looked up for you, and it did come out in 2017.
Okay.
So that was the first time I played it, and I really like the boat setting on that one,
Yep.
Yes,
and
I love the setting on that one.
it definitely has a lot of similar ideas and themes, but a much more condensed way, which I also think can also be a big strength. But I'll
Yeah,
say
it
in that
plays way
game,
quicker.
yeah, it plays quicker. There's less routes. Like in VLR, there's like what, like 20 different. That might be more than that. There's like a lot of different endings and branches, so it can become a bit unwieldy. So 999 is more simple in that way. But for me, the cast in 999 just doesn't really compare.
Yeah, and then the third game, I feel like the third game I actually enjoyed playing more, but just the story is just kind of it ends on a whimper, unfortunately, which is a shame for the series because if you don't hit your ending very well, then it's going to kind of put a damper on it. But and some of the new characters I didn't really like as much in Zero Time Dilemma, but I mean I still enjoyed it, but it's definitely I hate Eric, by the way. I cannot stand Eric. And I got to say this one thing about this because when I went to I think it was TechoCon in Pittsburgh, an anime convention, they had a panel about Zero or the whole series in general. And the people who did the presentation loved Eric and hated Sigma, and it made me so
Ugh.
mad because they're just like, "Oh, Sigma's a terrible person. He's not. He's really mean to. I can't remember what her name is now.
Fee?
No, it's not Fee. It's in the third game. It's the girl in the third game, the new character.
Oh,
Yeah, I don't
because
even remember that game. That third
She has
game is
like
very
yeah.
forgettable to me.
But and then loved Eric. We had to watch the scene where the ice cream truck came with Eric and his brother, and I'm like, if I hear the scene one more time, I'm gonna lose my mind because I cannot stand Eric. He's so annoying.
is Eric the little kid or the other new guy?
He's the other new guy who's like obsessed with the girl and so mean to Q's the little kid, and he's so mean to Q all the time.
Yeah, Eric kind of annoys me too, so I fully understand where you're coming from. And I've only played about 30 to 40 minutes of the game.
Yeah, the structure of that game was a big turnoff to me. Kind of like I said in 13 Sentinels, I don't really always love these games where it's the story's told all over the place like that game was because it's just
Yeah.
told in scenes and you never know what order they're in. So like VLR, it has a lot of different branching timelines, but that doesn't really bother me. But like seeing so many scenes where you don't know where they connect to each other, that's when I started having a bit of an issue with it.
That's what I'm really excited for with that one when I finally get to it. But I tried playing 40 minutes again and realized I couldn't hit X to go through the dialogue any faster, and then I lost my
Oh,
mind.
really? Oh
Yeah.
man, I don't know if I would have the patience nowadays to do that. I didn't know that was a thing. How did I do it? What happened to me? Am I broken now? Because I used to be able to do it apparently.
It's like me with random encounters. Like it's just hard for me to play games with random encounters now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas now I can suddenly handle random encounters, but there's other little things that completely hang me up.
So our number 5 game we already briefly talked about, and that is now the first game that all three of us had on our list, and that is Danganronpa 2.
Ooh.
I had this at 4, Connor had this at 8, and Straw, you had this at 6.
Yeah, great game. I guess you had the highest, right? So I guess you could go for it.
Yeah, so this, just like I said with Danganronpa 1, so I had Danganronpa 1 at 3 and Danganronpa 2 at 4. So it was really nitpicking when I put Danganronpa 1 ahead of it because I just feel like, kind of like what Connor said earlier, I definitely view these games as a pair, and especially because I played them back to back.
Yeah. This is kind of also a combination of my Danganronpa 1 and 2 pick. But here I just really loved the cast more, not just from their personalities, but also the role they were playing in the story as a whole. Of course, to go into that would spoil
Spoiler, yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
But I'll just say I like the main character here more. And I really like Chiaki.
I think that's a safe thing to say.
Yeah, I like her, but I'm not as high on her as everybody else. But I know, pretty much everybody in the Discord worships her but me.
Well, it's funny too because you say, Connor, that you like Hajime more because I think I like Makoto more actually as the main character.
Makoto just came. Well, I liked Makoto, but he's a little too just kind of
Bland, kind of just
a,
there.
a
He's
little
like
too happy,
typical.
a little
Yeah.
too optimistic still.
Yeah.
Hajime was more grounded in the kind of semi-pessimism that I'm attuned to.
Yeah, I think I'm with Connor. I definitely prefer the protagonist into Makoto's a kind of a little bit more like, I don't know the way to phrase it, but he's kind of more like the generic, like, yeah, optimistic
He's like your
anime
typical
protagonist.
he's
Yeah,
like your typical anime man character.
we can do it with the power of friendship. It's like,
And
okay,
luck.
He's
work
very
out.
shonen.
He is. But yeah, I really like the cast in 2. I liked it in both, but I like it slightly less in Danganronpa 2, but I think it has a lot of strong characters. Just like Straw Hat said, I think the male cast in this game is really good. I also
Yeah.
like how I feel like in this game there's more put on like the backstory of some of the characters than the first one, and how that kind of like ties with the
Mhm.
trials and the
Yeah.
intricates of like all the parts of the plot.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Is the backstories of them feel more relevant? It's like
Yeah.
I feel like I know those characters more than I do the first cast.
Yeah, I definitely would agree with that.
I also think the twist is a lot better in 2. Like it's good in 1 as well. I feel like it's more complex in 2. Like 1, I didn't expect what happened in 1 to be true either, but I could see it happening where 2 just kind of blew my mind once I figured out what actually was going on.
And I
Yeah.
have a lot of respect for it from a writing perspective in that they played a card that could easily be a very bad, lazy twist, but they did it right.
Yeah. And then I do wish that we had a third like game in the trilogy to wrap up the story, because I remember I was really into the first
I
2
know.
games, and then I made the mistake of playing that spin-off game starring Makoto's sister. What is it called? The Shooter.
Ultra Despair Girls.
Yeah, and that put me a bit on, like, I'm like, okay, okay. I don't know why I did that, but we're on to the finale. I wish it was a game, but it's a show, and then the show is kind of.
I know it's not as good.
I actually liked the show. I
I
feel
don't
like I'm the only one in the Discord now who did.
I don't like hate it, but I also, like I said before, I don't necessarily like it a lot either. I think has some interesting ideas, but I definitely would have preferred if they just made a game to wrap it up.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't mind the anime. I thought it was fine. I just preferred if they would have did a game instead of doing it, like Parrot said.
Yeah, for me, just 1 and 2 have like a really, really good setup to like an overarching story, and then it kind of just I feel like it either didn't have to end in 3, or if it was going to end, I would definitely would have preferred a more like elongated game version instead of what the show was.
Yeah, the spare arc at least worked just fine as an
Yeah,
anime, though.
yeah, that part I liked. It's
Yeah, it
the
was
other
great.
part I didn't like that much. Okay, so our number 4 game is a game that was on both Straw and Connor's list, and that is The Great Ace Attorney. Straw, you had it at 3, and Connor had it at 4.
Oh, pretty
That's some.
even then.
That's a pretty nice math there on that one.
Yep.
We kind of talked about this already, so I really don't need to talk too much about it because it was on Connor's top 10 last year. But it's kind of another Somnium Files 2 situation where I was excited to play the Great Ace Attorney games, but I'm like, I'm not going to like the games as much because I love the original cast from the original Phoenix Wright games. And I'm like, I'm just not going to like the cast as much. I'm sure I won't like the setting as much, but I was wrong. I ended up liking the cast more. And then the trials are even better because they add things like the jury, which is great. And it's so good. And the fact that it's 2 games combined just makes so they can really ramp up the story and make it even better. The second one, especially, is my favorite because it's just the culmination of the first game. But yeah, like I said enough already, but I just adore these games.
Yeah, and like half my top 10s were all ones I played last year, so these lists look a little similar for me, but it's a wonderful refresh on a series that already was amazing. It's got twice the heart and that same hilarious comedy sense. So I love it.
Yeah, I think I want to try that one eventually. I've only played the first Phoenix Wright game, and I liked it, but I didn't necessarily love it. But I feel like, from what I've heard, I might like these ones more than I liked the first game.
I think
Yeah,
that's probably going to be true.
yeah, because even the first game for me, I think it's only so far I played 1, 2, 3, 4, and then these 2. I still need to play 5 and 6. And number 1's probably my second least favorite behind the second game.
Yeah. So I'm starting out maybe not necessarily in a great spot.
Well, but the third game, which I'm assuming is not on anybody else's list, right?
Which one
Because
is that?
No,
Trials and Tribulations, because I had that one on my list as
Yeah,
well.
well, you know what? We can just do your honorable mention now. It is very related to this.
That's what I figured. Yes, I had that number 8 on my list. And yeah, Trials and Tribulations was my favorite Phoenix Wright game before the Great Ace Attorney. And yeah, that one's the final of the original trilogy, and it just ends so strong. Godot's my favorite prosecutor too. He's great. He's just always sipping that coffee and
he
slamming
was
it down.
he was a wonderful prosecutor. His involvement in the story as a whole was also really memorable.
So yeah, that was I love all the Phoenix Wright games so far. Even 2, like I said, is my least favorite. I still really like it. And then I just played Apollo Justice last year, which was really good as well. So I'm
Yeah,
excited to finish the series.
I played most of them back in 2017, which is part of the reason why I probably didn't have any of the other ones on this list. But also, Great Ace Attorney just does everything I remember loving about the series and even better.
Yeah.
So, just did that one on the list.
All right, so that brings us to our third, which is also a game that Straw and Connor had on their lists that I have not played yet, and that is Umineko. Straw had it at 1, and Connor, you had it at 3.
Nice. Yeah, I knew Connor really liked it, and this I've said it before, so I'm sure it's not a surprise to anybody, but it is my favorite visual novel just because, and this is just a straight up visual novel as we talked about once again on Connor or on our top 10s list because Connor played it last
You're
year.
welcome.
But yeah, it's straight up visual novel. There's like a little gameplay at the end, but it's very minimal, but it's straight up reading or listening. And it's just, we also read Higurashi, last year, and it just completely is way better than Higurashi as a visual novel. I feel like the
By a
characters,
mile.
yeah, the characters have so much depth to them, and just all of them are. Oh, I should have just started it with the ooh, goo, or what she do all the time, Marie.
I don't remember.
Well, I guess
Oh,
you didn't listen to it because I listened, but she always does that ooh ooh at the end of all her sentences. But
yeah.
she,
Yeah.
but yeah, all the characters are great. I don't want to spoil it because I do think people need to read it, even though it is an insanely long visual novel. But the concepts in it, like people still to this day, still don't understand everything about the story. And this came out a long time ago at this point, and people still are talking about it. And it's just a masterpiece, I feel like.
But on like a 13 Sentinels, you don't feel like you have to understand everything that happened in order
Mm-hmm.
to appreciate the story because it's more about the characters in the first place and their paced and like it gets into the characters much better than Higurashi, I thought. And you can treat it like 8 different books if you want to do it slowly.
Yep.
Yeah, it's I hear such good things about it, but that length is just very, very, very daunting.
I can't believe I did it in 1 month. I really can't.
I
I'd,
can. I
I'd,
can.
I think I read it I think I started it in January of 2020, and I think I finished it all in April, but I didn't read it like after the questions arc, I took like a month or two break and then went back and finished it. But I had read that if you get the mods that like add voice acting, all that, if you just let it play without reading through it, it takes 15 hours an episode. But
And
that
how
doesn't
many are
even
there?
there's 8 episodes, but that also doesn't count the tea times, and I think there's another thing too, which can sometimes be longer than an episode. I think one of them is really long.
Yeah,
Maybe
it's like the episode, tea time, and then epilogue or something like that for
yeah.
each one.
And what is the tea time?
It
Basically, it's another epilogue. It's a
yeah.
pretty funny distinction, but it's sometimes they're pretty much just parts of the episode. So
Mhm.
you should just treat them all as one complete package.
It is an insane ask, but the payoff is definitely worth it.
And what would you say like the genre of this is? I don't really know much about it other than it's some sort of mystery, right?
Horror mystery.
I mean, that does sound pretty up my alley.
Oh
Just
yeah, I
the
think
It's
you'd like it.
100 hours is not as much up my alley.
it's kind of a similar genre as Higurashi, but with a different like theming. Whereas it's a rich family on their private islands and things happen and now they're trying to piece together what exactly that was.
Yeah. And like the main premise is the argument is, was it magic or was it not magic, is like the main premise of the whole thing. Like you try to solve it. The characters are arguing like, hey, it was all from a magic. That's why it happened. And then somebody's like, no, it's not. And that's pretty much pretty what the whole you're trying to figure out, was it actually magic or was it not?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to get to it eventually. It's just that's that's daunting for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I do read pretty fast. Maybe it'd only take me like 5 hours.
Yeah. He said 15 hours an episode for the voice, but I don't think I had the longest episode for me reading straight through, even including the extras, was 12 hours, and most of them fell in the like 7 to 10 hour range.
Yeah, I did hear that if you skip all voice acting, it's around 8 to 10 hours. So yeah, that matches up.
Yeah, I will definitely get to it at some point. But since we're there, I'll quickly just shout out Higurashi. It wasn't like I don't think it was close to making my list, but I did find it to be a very interesting story. I liked the characters, and I liked the horror elements of it, and the mystery was also very satisfying to me. My main problem with it was just it was obnoxiously wordy for what it was trying to do, and I think it probably would have been a better game or better story if it was honestly if it was probably like 10 to 15 hours shorter.
Yeah, the main and see, it's kind of hard for me to rank the visual novel because really like the anime. It's one of my favorite animes, and typically the visual novels are better than the anime, but I feel like Higurashi just spent too much time wasting on its slice of life game stuff at the beginning of each episode, where they did not do that in the anime, and it hurt it because, like you said, it made it too bloated and wordy, where they
Yep.
didn't the characters don't have as much depth in Higurashi as they do in Umineko, so you don't need as much time with them. I feel like where they could have just where that's where the anime shines, because it pretty much lets the story be the front and center, and that's why I highly recommend that over the visual novel.
Yeah, because I liked a lot of the slice of life stuff like in a vacuum, but when it's happening over and over and over and over and over again, it starts to become like,
Yeah.
okay, I've read this for 4 hours straight, and all you've done is play a game in the classroom. I mean, can we,
Yeah.
after it happens, one episode, we don't necessarily need it to happen, 5 other times.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Especially after reading Umineko, it's very clear that Higurashi was Ryukishi's first like major visual novel.
Yeah, because even in like the anime, they do play a lot of games like they do in the visual novel, but it's just they don't spend as much time as they do. Like it's maybe 5 minutes of a couple episodes. It's not 4 hours or 5 hours of the whole chapter like it is in the visual novel.
Yeah, I think I would be interested in trying the anime. Also, I also saw there is a manga adaptation. I have no idea if that's supposed to be good, but I definitely want to experience the story now that it's been a little while since I've played it. I want to experience it in a more truncated, well-paced version and see how I feel then.
And also the anime, there's a new anime that goes further than the visual novel, so it makes stuff even more interesting. And Connor, you should definitely check it out because there may or may not be some ties to Umineko in it.
Mm, I saw a little bit of that.
All right, so that brings us to our second game, which is another game that all three of us put and probably could be guessed, and that is Danganronpa V3. I had this at 6, Connor had it at 5, and Straw, you can start because you had it at second.
Yes, Danganronpa V3.
I am shocked.
This game is very controversial because there's some people who love it, like me, and there's some people who hate it. And I still remember when it first came out, my friends and I had played it. And well, I don't want to spoil it, but basically, there's like something happens at the end, and my one friend hated what they did with it. I was pretty okay with it. I liked it, and my other friend loved it. So we had a very interesting discussion about what we all liked about it. But yeah, they pretty much this is as far as gameplay and presentation, this is by far the best looking playing Danganronpa, and it is the longest one as well. And like we had said before, I think the characters are the weakest in this one, unfortunately. But there are some really strong characters like Kokichi. Shout out to him, who I also cosplayed at one point because I just think he's one of the best characters and is the best in Danganronpa, in my opinion. But he's a great character, and it's just the rest I don't feel like are as good. But yeah, I love the game. It kind of went out on a I think it went out on a high note. I don't know if they'll ever make another Danganronpa after this, but I was pretty happy with the longer I need to replay it again, but the more time I've spent away from it, the more I like it.
I kind of hope they don't. My opinion of this one was that it was the perfect bookend. And
Mm-hmm.
as far as the cast goes, I actually liked the fact that the cast as a whole was weaker because they all fit into the themes of the story and the points the author was trying to explore more interestingly, I thought. Whereas the other ones were kind of more involved with the doings of it being a killing game. This one was a little more thematically interested in that concept and in being a sequel. So I really loved what they did with the all of
Mm-hmm.
it.
Yeah, I find this one a little hard to talk about because I also agree that the cast in this game is not that appealing to me generally. There are some standouts, but what makes it interesting to me is a lot of the story elements that happen throughout the games, which would be big spoilers. So those are kind of the interesting choices I think that this game make me enjoy it.
It's like, this is number 2 on our top list, right?
Yep.
So it's like, hey, this is number 2. We can't talk about it, but you should play it.
Yeah.
Pretty much, yeah, because there's not much I can say about the elements that I really enjoyed about it.
We can maybe do a full. I want to That's the one I haven't replayed yet. I think I've replayed Danganronpa 1 like 3 or 4 times, or 2 I've played 2 or 3 times, and I've never replayed V3, so it's time.
You can hang out with Ganta.
I keep thinking I want to replay 1 and 2, but the more I think about it, especially when Moo was going through it, the more I realize I just want to replay V3.
Moo was pretty funny. What he flew through that series. I was like, next I would look one day and he was like on 1. Then I'm like, wait a minute, you're done with it already?
He's channeling his Connor.
Concentrated gaming.
It's an impressive feat. I won't take that away from you. So, sadly, we can't talk too much about that game. So, but we will move on. And before we get to our number 1, we will quickly mention the games that didn't quite make the just making the cut section. So, for Connor, that was Remember 11, which you had as your 9th game.
Yep. It's everything that we liked about Uchikoshi and talked about Uchikoshi already with VLR and Isomium Files. That one had all the things I liked plus better character writing. Or at least character writing that was more suited to me. And it was set on a snowy environment, which is always like an extra 5 points for me.
It reminds you of your days back in Boston.
Yeah, that was the best time there.
Reminds me of looking outside my window right now.
No, I'm so jealous. I got snow this morning in the desert.
Wow.
It disappeared in 5 minutes, but it was there.
Yeah, so the snowy setting, I don't know. It does sound like a pretty interesting game. I was pretty interested in this one when it got added to our list, but, being only on PC is definitely a drawback for me. So I have to, mentally prepare myself to play a game on the PC.
Yes. Thankfully, it's not too long, but it's still like a 20-hour read, so maybe 15 for you.
Yeah, I could stream it onto my iPad, I guess. And then my number 9 game is a game we all have played, and that is Genosha.
Oh yeah.
I think I've learned that I like this game more than most people like this game. Everybody seems to enjoy it, and then at a certain point, it becomes long in the tooth, and they, are ready to move on. But for me, I just think weird for visual novel, but the gameplay was very addicting to me. The mafia, werewolf style game just never really got old for me.
I did really like what they did with the gameplay. I just reached a point around the 90th loop where I had solved it more or less for me, where I could get whatever result I wanted, which is how I knew that I had glitched it and that I had to just look up the ending on video because my save file was borked.
That does suck.
Yeah, it kind of was like what you said, Parrot. Like, I just kind of got tired of it near the end. Like, I enjoyed the ride, but then by near the end, I'm just like, all right, I know what I need to do, but it's not happening. Or somebody gets killed that I need to survive or something. It's like, ugh.
That alien just always. I remember when I was playing,
always dying.
He always died, and like, oh my god, you're like one of the last people I need to do anything with it because you're so bad at this that you always are dead.
It is funny to me that most people were having too much of problems with randomness at that point, and I'm sitting there going, yes, I have it all under control, except the game still won't let me finish it.
I could never get, was it Rock, or what was their name, like Raku or something? It was like,
oh, Rakio.
Yeah, Rakio. Like,
or
he would,
something like that.
like, everybody always wanted him to die all the time, so
there were just some cursed characters in that game, and I love that aspect of it because that was something you could predict and work off of. This character is cursed, therefore I will do
whatever I can do to save them if I need to. It's like, all right, alien boy. Well, I know if I'm in trouble, I'm throwing you under the bus because everybody wants you dead anyways.
Definitely did enjoy that game a lot.
That game is why I didn't quite click with the Raging Loop game. I'm gonna give that game another try. I know you played it. I think you both played it, but I
Yep.
just went into that game and it started setting up in a similar sort of style. But I was like, oh, I don't actually get to play it. I'm not quite as invested as I was in that other game.
Yeah, I definitely wanted to shout out Raging Loop because I really did enjoy it. It made my top 10 last year. There's another game I wasn't sure if I guess it probably would have made the qualifications, but I don't know if it would have actually made my list or not, but I really want to shout out Until Dawn because I really like that game. That was on PlayStation. It was probably, I don't know what year it came out now. It's been a while, but I really, really liked that game when it came out.
An
I
early
never would have.
PlayStation release, wasn't it?
Yeah,
PlayStation 4?
yeah, like a pretty early PS4 game. I never would have thought to put that game, but I guess there really is not that much difference in the way that game plays and compared to a game like AI Somnium Files or something.
Yeah, or even 13 Sentinels. It has actually less gameplay, I feel like, because you're pretty much just walking around and making choices.
Yeah. I would put it up there with Somnium Files in terms of genre, because both of those styles of games are just like a marriage of visual novel and the classic like Western adventure game, point and click kind of.
Yeah. My number 10 that we haven't mentioned yet is a game called Murder by Numbers, which I feel like not many people have played, but it is a visual novel where it involves you walking around talking to people and trying to solve a mystery basically. So it's almost like Phoenix Wright in that way, but instead of like a trial or anything, the gameplay just resorts to you doing Picross puzzles. So it's like, oh, I'm trying to find this object, and then you have to do a Picross puzzle, and then when you solve it, it's that object, and it's like, oh, I found it.
That's
So
really funny.
it actually has pretty interesting characters, but I'm just a sucker for Picross puzzles, I think. So that's why I wanted to give this game a nice 10th place shout out.
Nice.
It is on Steam, I guess. I guess I'll add it to my wish list. It's only $15 right now.
Yeah, it also has like a pretty weirdly nice animated intro with a pretty catchy song that every once in a while I find myself remembering and humming. But yeah, if you like Picross puzzles, I think that that's a good game.
I really don't, but I'll give it a shot.
I have that genre, or the Picross puzzles, permanently associated with the early years of 3D, or not 3DS, the Nintendo DS, because I would always see that game advertised or on the shelves when I still didn't have a DS. So I was like, oh, I could play that game, I guess.
That and Polarium or whatever. I remember that one too. A lot of random puzzle games on DS.
Yes, there are.
All right, so we are now through our 10 of our top 10/11. So that brings us to our final game, which I think is very obvious, and that's Steins Gate.
I'm very happy for you, Parrot, that you got this to be our number one on the list because I know how much you adore Steins Gate.
I crunched the numbers. I twisted your list to make it happen. No. I had it at 1, as you'd imagine. Connor was clutch here. He had it at 2. And Straw, you had it at 7. So,
yep.
Straw, you could start. Why do you hate me?
So I just played Steins Gate last year, and so my history with the series is that I love the anime because that was my first experience with it. And I think that's probably why I didn't enjoy the visual novel as much as you both did. I don't know, maybe Connor saw the anime first too, but there really was. Oh, you did? Okay. But there really wasn't any surprises, but I do love the original art style, and I just love the series, so that's why it's on my list. And it has great characters. Daru, who makes Hifumi look like even more of a chump than he already is one of the best characters that everyone can love, unlike other ones. But there's really not a character I don't like. And I want to shout out Ferris because I feel like a lot of people don't like her, and I really do like her. She's not the best girl because we all know who that is, but she's probably my second favorite actually. So
she's a lot of fun.
Yeah, so I actually saw the anime first also, which is weird for me because I don't really watch anime, but at the time my roommate just threw on the first episode and I just watched it with him, and I'm like, oh wow, this is really, really interesting. So he kind of watched it without me. So then I eventually picked it back up and I just watched the whole thing one day. It was like a really snowy day, so I didn't end up going anywhere that day. So I just watched the whole series in one go, and I just became really enamored with it. And then I picked up the visual novel on Vita, honestly, not for years later, and I played it on a plane flight to Florida. And then, like, every night on my vacation, I would play it, and I played it on the way back. And I just feel like it just has really amazing, like, lovable characters. Just like Straw Hat says, I don't think there's a bad character in this game. Shout out to Mr. Braun, of course, one of the best,
Oh,
the
yeah.
cover
Heck yeah,
character.
we love our CRTs. I wish I had one again.
But yeah, I just really love the cast. I love the story and the twists it turns it takes. It definitely has very emotional scenes in it, which, when I first watched the show, I did not expect at all. So I could see where, like, playing the game after seeing the show, obviously you're not going to have as much of an emotional impact, but I liked, all the characters get more development and get fleshed out better, and you also get
Mhm.
to see all the different endings of, like, what could have been with different choices, which I think all of those are also really well done.
Mhm.
Yeah. Oh, I saw the anime for the first time at a suggestion from a friend who was already watching the Zero anime that was releasing at the same time or around that time. I immediately latched onto it because, again, I love the cast and I love that blend of it being a grounded sci-fi where it was playing with these really cool concepts, but it was never letting any of them take complete control of the story. It had time travel, but you had really limited time travel, and they were playing around with it. And you had kind of this like, oh, it's this random element of this accident in the lab, but that it was still building how that was happening. And so you also got it. It also got to focus on this really cute romance between Okame and Kurisu,
Mhm.
and I loved it because
Yeah,
I'm a sucker for that.
yeah, I love, because I definitely like sci-fi, but I definitely prefer the more grounded sci-fi. So that's why I think I also have, loved Steins Gate so much, because it's not necessarily believable, but it's all in some sort of grounded reality, and it lays out the rules, and it just doesn't go too crazy with it.
Yeah, and actually, after replaying, I played the first intro. Or I replayed the intro of the visual novel last year when we were supposed to have the Steins Gate month for the club, and upon rehearing the mathematical explanations that they were talking about in the start, I was going, "Oh, now that I know more about this, I realize that they knew more about all
Yeah.
these theories than I originally thought they did." So it's it's fantastical, but they're thinking about it. That's really cool.
I just have one more thing to say. El Sai Kongru.
Oh, I just love him so much. I know that that's like some sort of character trope, right?
Yeah, the
Yeah.
what do they call that? I
Oh,
should
yeah,
know
I know,
this.
it's on
It's
the
like
tip of my tongue
Chubiu
too.
or
Yeah,
something
that's
like
right.
that.
That's
Fugibio.
it. Yep, that's
Yeah,
it.
I think I just am a sucker for that character style, because, like,
It's so funny.
I just found him endlessly entertaining. Every time he did something stupid, and I just also love the way everybody reacts to him doing it, and it just always makes
Yeah.
me laugh every time.
I've seen a lot of anime with that character type though, and I will say that Okabe definitely has the best of that. He's definitely the best because a lot of times with that character type, you really get kind of sick of it, but with him, you never get sick of it.
Because he had a reason why he was hanging on to that Chuny complex, and that Chuny complex slowly, well, I guess I shouldn't say too much about it, but it actually evolved over time instead of it just being his comedy trope for the whole show. Which leads into another thing I loved about it is everything that was going on that was not so happy and hunky dory would just really up the emotional stakes for me. I love that too.
Hmm.
Yeah, and it's definitely an example of a story that has a very slow build, which can sometimes be bad, but in this case, I think it makes the emotional payoff later so much more powerful.
Absolutely.
Yeah, shout out to Mr. Braun, of course, legendary character, and of course Kurisu, my favorite character.
Brown was so good.
I know, I
There's
love that guy.
also I don't know if I can't remember if she's in the original or only in Zero or even only shown in the anime, but there is a character that looks exactly like Chie from Persona
There
4,
is.
and
Oh,
she's
yeah,
one of my
that's a
favorites.
zero.
And just because she looks, I'm like, this is Chie. She's here.
It looks just like her. Yeah,
Sip.
that's in yeah, she's in Steins Gate Zero. She's one of like my Yuri's random friends.
Yep.
You know, shout out to Steins Gate Zero. It's a really interesting idea. I don't particularly think it's as good as. Well, it's definitely not as good as Steins Gate One. I don't think it's as good as Robotic Notes. Probably not as good as Chaos Child, but it is definitely an interesting game worth trying out.
I put
Yeah.
it slightly above Chaos Child for me.
I have
Oh,
not
not
read it.
Child. Chaos
Head,
Head.
yeah, I would
I,
too.
I have not read the visual novel yet, but I did see the anime. But I do own it, so I'll definitely play it at some point.
It's worth playing. My problem with that game is more in structure than necessarily the story it tells. I just think what makes Steins Gate really interesting is that at the end of the day, it is a linear story. I mean, it goes all over the place, but it is a very linear story. And Zero is not, and it makes it a little more confusing, I think, especially because different things happen in different timelines, but it's all supposed to be one continuous story, so it gets a little muddy.
Yeah. They also go a little off the rails on a lot of
Yes,
parts.
Yeah.
yes, they do. That is what's good about Steins Gate. It doesn't really go off the rails, I don't think, at any point.
Nope. That's why I love it.
But yeah, that will wrap up our list. Our final top 10/11 will, as a recap, Somnium Files 2 and Robotic Notes Elite tied for 10. 13 Sentinels was 9. The original Danganronpa was 8. Clannad was 7. Virtue's Last Reward was 6. Danganronpa 2 was 5. Great Ace Attorney was 4. Umineko was 3. Danganronpa V3 is 2. And one of the greatest games of all time, of course, I'm not biased at all, Steins Gate, number 1.
So since it's officially number one in the lores of Backlog Brainrot, are we going to make it a rule that no one is allowed to insult our number one official visual novel, which is Steins Gate now?
Of course, yeah.
I mean, if they're the type who would, I don't see why we wouldn't have already banned them from the Discord. So,
Watch out, Eddie.
I was gonna say Ed's still there, so
well, you gotta make an exception for people
yeah.
like Ed.
I think maybe after we'll see how long this goes, but we could maybe do like an updated list at some point because obviously we do all like playing visual novels, so I'd be curious if our list would stay the same.
If things go as planned, I'll have another 10 at least done by the end of the year.
Oh, I thought you meant the week.
I haven't actually touched a visual novel this month yet.
Wow.
I've been too busy binging Fire Emblem games.
Well, before we go, shout out to my least favorite visual novel, Hateful Boyfriend.
Yep. Shout out to that one. Also on the bottom of my list.
Yeah, I really did not like Analog Hate Story. I think you guys like that more than me, but I was just like, I do not like this.
I thought it was cool.
Yeah, that's second to last on my list. That was our top 10, top 11. You got to shout out, bottom 1, bottom 2.
We're just going to keep shouting out Hatoful Boyfriend as our least favorite game of 2022 that we played.
Oddly enough, I think that's one visual novel that Addy actually likes, so
I guess he's got a thing for birds. I don't know. But that will do it for us here. Get in on the Discord on the games that we missed, because I know there are many, many, many other visual novels that people like that the three of us have not played. Tell us what we got wrong other than our number 1. And come chat with us in the Discord. We'll see you again in a couple weeks for our next episode, which will be a general backlog discussion on what we played, read, etc. And so until then, we will catch you later.
Bye-bye.
sayonara.